Holden. How are you doing today? Have you thought much about our last session? We talked about your depressive thoughts, delusional fantasies, and extreme cynicism, especially aimed at people in the world. We discussed depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. Do you have any questions about those two terms? Well, I wanted to share my story. My father died when I was only about 6 years old. He was on his way home from work and was hit by a drunken driver. For the longest time, I fantasized that he would walk through the front door. I couldn't imagine why this had happened to me. I was always a good kid and a good student. I did my chores and I loved my parents. It just wasn't right. It took me a long time to reconcile with his death. I felt like it had been done to me. I was too young to understand accidents happen. Heck, that's probably why I'm a psychiatrist now. It took me a while to heal the hurt, loss, and confusion. But with the help of therapy, I was able to move on with my life. I think I experienced similar things that you're going through right now. Of course, I can't speak for you, but we both lost someone very close to us, and I certainly wished I could have done something to prevent my father's death, and I believe you wish you could have done something to prevent Alex. Talk about your feelings around Ali's illness and death. Can you think back to how you were feeling when he was ill? It must have been really painful to watch someone go through cancer at such a young age and to feel helpless in curing him. Can you describe what happened then and how you felt? How about right after, when he passed away? I wonder if the trauma you experienced with losing your brother at such a young age has brought this fantasy of the hero to young children into your life. I think the incident of the young boy walking in the street in New York and your feelings of his innocence is an indication that you long for those days for yourself and possibly your brothers. What do you think? Life is unpredictable and is unfair. Once we all acknowledge that fact, we can come to terms with events that make no sense to us. What do you think about that? Now I'd like to move on to where we are now. It is refreshing how honest and direct you are. It is very unusual for a 16-year-old. I'm impressed with your drive for self-discovery. I find it interesting you are brutally aware of the phoniness that is present in our society, but I worry that it has taken over every part of your personality instead of being just a piece of itself. Discovery. I also want to point out that you are trying to become an adult, but maybe not in the healthiest ways. Let's take, for example, the excessive amount of drinking and your obsession with sex. I want to explore other ways one might transition from childhood to adulthood. Keeping in mind a healthier transition, what are some ideas we could explore, you think? It's very normal to have sexual attraction to women, and I must admire your intent on having genuine feelings before engaging in sex. That again is unusual at your age. Most young men just want to take off the urge without regard for your woman. You to enjoy life, experience intimacy with an opposite sex. That's great, Holden. I like your desire to have a meaningful relationship, one that you can express who you are and not hide your feelings. That's an example of a healthy relationship. What about socializing with your peers, drinking normally and enjoying the company of others? Yes, going back to school and participating in normal social events is a great start. I agree that an all-boys boarding school might not be the best fit for you, but we can discuss that later when your parents come next week. Those schools certainly have their shortcomings. Do you think you can see people in a more open way? Do you think you can let people have their bad traits, but see their good traits as well? We will continue working on how you will move forward, but I want to assure you that the depression and PTSD are normal occurrences for someone who has experienced trauma such as yourself. They don't have to become permanent. I'm a perfect example of how one can heal and get on with a healthy life. I think you have an incredible qualities and insights into yourself and others. We need to find different ways for you to see life and express yourself. Do you agree, Holden? I will see you tomorrow. Life is unpredictable and is unfair. Once we acknowledge that fact, we can come to terms with the events that make no sense to us. What do you think about that, Holden? Now I would like to move on to where we are now. It's refreshing how honest and direct you are. It's very unusual for a 16-year-old. I am impressed with your drive for self-discovery, and I find it interesting you are brutally aware of the phoniness that is present in our society. But I worry that it is taken over every part of your personality instead of being piece of discovery. I also want to point out that you're trying to become an adult, but maybe not in the healthiest ways. Let's take an example. The excessive amount of drinking and obsession with sex. I want to explore other ways one might transition from childhood to adulthood, keeping in mind a healthier transition. What are some of the ideas we can explore? It's very normal to have sexual attraction to women, and I must say I admire your intent on having genuine feelings before engaging in sex. That again is unusual at your age. Most young men just want to take off the urge without regard for most young women.